Can intuitive eating and balanced eating go together? So contrary to popular belief, intuitive eating is not about eating whatever you want, whenever you want, regardless of any nutrition, of what your body feels, and of basically anything except your urges to eat. There are actually 10 principles to intuitive eating, and the 10th principle of intuitive eating is actually called gentle nutrition, and it involves making food choices that honor your health, all while making you feel good. And if you want a more detailed video on gentle nutrition, definitely let me know, and it's something I can totally do. So yes, it is actually possible to eat balanced meals as an intuitive eater, and here's how. Remember the basics of intuitive eating. Intuitive eating is an evidence-based way of eating that promotes having a healthy relationship with food and listening to your body's internal cues and signals instead of what the outside world, outside rules and regulations are telling you to do. It has 10 principles, including rejecting diet mentality and honoring your hunger, also feeling your fullness, challenging the food police, and kind of learning to discover satisfaction. It's important that you do keep this in mind beforehand, because if you focus too much on the balanced eating, it's really easy to lose the intuitive eating aspect of it. So that's why I want to teach you in this video how to kind of have these intuitive eating concepts and how you can kind of adapt balanced eating to that, and like not the other way around. Incorporate the basics of balanced eating. So once you have integrated these principles, you can learn to make balanced meals. And in short, a balanced meal is a meal that provides you with all of the nutrients that you need without over-consuming calories. And it should involve a lot of different food groups. If you have no idea what that looks like, I recommend using the plate method instead of counting macros or calories. And I did a couple videos on the plate method. I'm going to put the latest one right here. And basically you can use this plate method as a guide, and I'm really emphasizing the word guide here because I don't want it to overrule your intuitive eating. This is just to kind of, if you have no idea about balanced eating and you don't really know what you want and you still want to eat meals that have the nutrients that you need, then you can use this. But if at any moment it feels overwhelming and it feels like it's not intuitive eating for you because you're just focusing on getting like all the right amounts of food on your plate, then don't do it. This is just to serve as a guide again. So to sum up the plate method really quickly, it just involves filling up around half of your plate with veggies, 1/4 of your plate with protein, and then 1/4 of your plate with carbs. So for the veggies, you can put some greens, you can put any like member of the cabbage family, you can put like zucchini, eggplant, peppers, raw veggies as well, like tomatoes, cucumbers, just any veggie that you enjoy, you can put in that half. And then as for the protein, you can put some animal protein, you can put like chicken or fish or things like that. And then you can also put plant-based protein there, so tofu or legumes, beans, lentils, chickpeas, all of these things. And then for the carbs, you can put whole grains, you can also put starchy veggies. So that's basically the plate method, and it's just to give you a visual of what you should be approximately having on your plate and not, so you don't have to like count every single thing, track every single thing, which is totally not what you want to be doing with intuitive eating. And the reason why I encourage learning about balanced eating, even if I also promote intuitive eating, is that I truly believe that I can eat intuitively because I have this knowledge on nutrition, and it's easy for me as a nutritionist to just say, oh, just eat whatever your body tells you to eat. But there's lots of underlying knowledge there, and things that are kind of automatic for me, things that I don't really realize that I'm doing or tracking. And I know that it's not the case for everyone, and I know that to some people, if you tell them just eat intuitively, then they're going to be completely lost. So that's why I can encourage this. But if you feel like this is not working for you, it's like triggering for you, and it's just intuitive, like counterproductive with the intuitive eating, then you do not have to do this. Again, this is just a tool for people who kind of want to manage both. I hope that's clear. Give yourself options. I know it can be overwhelming. Some of my clients tell me that it's difficult to actually know what they want when they're starting out to eat intuitively. So a recommendation that I have is to give yourself kind of categories that you can choose from. For instance, you can have like your carbs categories, then your veggies, your protein, or you can kind of have smaller categories within that. You can have like the legumes, like which beans do I want? Red beans, white beans? Do I want quinoa, or do I want bulgur? Do I want whole wheat pasta, or do I want brown rice? Do I want sweet potatoes or potatoes? You know, what kind of greens do I want? What kind of veggies do I want? And basically having these different categories, so in your mind you can think about, you know, the type of meal that you want with like a certain amount of carbs, a certain amount of protein, and a certain amount of veggies. And then once you have a food from each category, you can think about them together and ask yourself whether that sounds good to eat together, or if there's anything you want to switch up. And this brings us to our next point, which is be flexible with your meals. Well, it's really important to have these notions. They should never come before what your body is telling you. So for instance, if your body is craving like a big plate of pasta and you just don't want to be bothered with veggies or protein, you can totally honor that and then balance it out later on with a meal that has more protein and veggies. And that's why I encourage being flexible with your meals and like flexible eating, because if you have like all your set meals with like the perfect plate and things like that, it's really difficult to eat intuitively when, you know, you can't really have room for intuition because everything is already pre-planned. So again, that's something you kind of have to play around with to see the kind of freedom that you want to let yourself have. The way I do it is I just have general meal ideas in my head that I'm gonna make with like all the ingredients that I need and like different recipes. But on the moment of the meal, I kind of let myself decide which kind of meal I want, and I can also switch it up. Like for instance, if I in my head I was like, oh, I'm gonna make this with brown rice, but then all of a sudden I'm in front of the brown rice and I don't really want it and I'm feeling more like quinoa, then I can, you know, switch that up. Or if you made more than what you wanted, it's fine to save some for later, or if you didn't make enough, it's fine to have more. So that's why it's important to have this general idea of like balanced meals, but to be really, really flexible, to let your like intuitive eating kick in if for whatever reason something were to like not sound good, or you just didn't feel like eating it. Balance your meals over a few days. I know I've gotten this question a lot on my how to create a healthy plate video, because I talked about balancing out your meals over a few days and people are wondering what this looks like. And it can be really, really difficult to practice intuitive eating if you're looking to make perfectly balanced plate with the plate method for every single meal. So that's why I recommend adding the flexibility that we talked about earlier by letting yourself balance out meals over the day or even over a few days. For instance, this can look like having a pizza on Friday night because that's what you were craving, but then instead of having the pancakes on the Saturday morning that you usually have, you make yourself an omelet with veggies and like some fruit to kind of balance that out. This can also look like having a big salad for lunch because you're craving something fresh and crunchy with tons of veggies and maybe some tofu, but then having a bowl of noodles for dinner because you want to balance out the carbs that you did not get in your previous meal. Make sure that you're always checking in with yourself and with what you want and crave before each meal. And the intent behind this is really, really important. I don't want you wanting to like save calories because you have like a big meal coming up and you're like, oh, I'm just gonna eat salad so I can eat, at a restaurant later on. Or I don't also want you to be having like a big meal and thinking of it as like a cheat meal that you need to balance out by just going on like a detox and having nothing for or smoothies for like the following day. So it's really important that the intent is right and that you're in the right place. If you find yourself thinking this way a lot, I really recommend you take a step back and you work on some of the other intuitive eating principles before getting to gentle nutrition and balanced eating. What you should be aiming for is making you and your body feel good. So for instance, replenishing it with fresh fruit and veggies after pizza night, because that pizza was delicious and satisfying but a little less nutrient heavy. So that's just the way to see it. It should never be about the things that I mentioned above. Focus on the small, easy things you can add. If you're craving something, ask yourself if you can add some nutrition to it without taking away any pleasure, any satisfaction that it would give you. For instance, when I earlier talked about just wanting a big plate of pasta without bothering for like veggies and protein, like I say this because it's my example full a lot of the time. So what you can do in that situation is ask yourself, if you were to add maybe some cherry tomatoes to that pasta, or some like tofu, bits of tofu to it, whatever, anything that you can kind of add to add some nutrition and to balance it out a little bit more without taking away that satisfaction of having that big bowl of pasta, because there's no use in like adding tons of veggies to your pasta and then being like, oh, this is not satisfying, I just wanted like mac and cheese, you know. And another example of this is, say you want like just a salad, like a fresh salad, you're craving something fresh, but you know that a salad is not going to sustain you for very long, and then you're probably going to go for like cookies or cupcakes later on. You can maybe add some nuts to the salad, or eat it with some whole grain bread. So basically, if you're able to add some nutrition and like kind of balance to your meal without compromising the taste and without compromising the pleasure that you're having in eating that, then go for it. But if not, that's fine as well. You could just eat your meal as is and then focus on balancing it out later on, like we talked about previously. Choose foods that bring both pleasure and health. Like I talked about a little bit, there's this really big misconception that intuitive eating is just eating whatever you want, like you have a sudden urge for something and you eat it and you have no regards for nutrition or like health or your body or whatever. And that's not true. Again, there may be a phase that's a little bit like that, but that's not in the core of intuitive eating. And the way I like to see it is to see it as like a Venn diagram. So I have one circle in my mind with all the foods that I really love, and then I also have one circle with all the foods that are healthy and that have like good nutrition. And then I try to eat most of my meals, I would say maybe like 70%, where these foods overlap. So for instance, like fruit is something that I love and that is also healthy. Lots of whole grains, things that I love that are also healthy. Beans and legumes, I love them and are also healthy. I would put like most vegetables in there as well. And then 30% of the time I eat from either one circle or the other. So sometimes I can go to my circle with the foods that I don't love, that are really healthy. Like I can be like, okay, you need some more greens, some more veggies, if it's not like my favorite vegetable in the world, but I still know that it's going to bring me some nutrition, and then I'm going to eat that, and that's fine. And then sometimes it's the other way around, and there's these foods that I really love but aren't super healthy, and I'm going to be like, yeah, you know what, I really want to have that pizza or that like burger, that like fast food burger, and I'm going to have it, and it's no big deal. But yeah, most of your meals should come from that intersection, foods that bring you both pleasure and also that honor your health. So hopefully you found this video helpful, and it could maybe bridge the gap a little bit between intuitive eating and balanced eating. I really don't want these things to be seen as like two separate worlds that can never coexist. And I really want you to remember that intuitive eating is a journey, a personal journey. It looks different for everyone. Obviously, there's like the the principles by Evelyn Tribole and Elise Resch that's like the foundation of intuitive eating. But I also believe that everybody should kind of have their own way of eating intuitively and figuring out what works for them. And I think that this could be a good way to help people who feel like they want to be intuitive eaters, but they just don't feel that they have the knowledge to actually trust their body to tell them what to eat, if that makes sense. So make sure you take plenty of time to find out what works for you, test out different things, and remember that all of this should be done in a health goal and, in a goal to like reject diet culture and like losing weight at all costs. That is never the intention. If you're doing it for the right reasons, then it's something that will last forever. And if not, it's just going to be another diet plan that just fails. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like it and subscribe, and see you on my next one. Bye.